Today on the CTV News at 5. Several cities have welcomed in 2013. While it's down to the wire for others still preparing.
CTV News with Jackie Scantlebury.
Good afternoon. We are 7 hours away from saying goodbye to 2012. And while we still have some time to sort out those last-minute New Year's Eve plans, in other areas of the world, the party is already well underway. This was the scene in Auckland, New Zealand, as a major fireworks display helped ring in 2013. The Kiwis are among the first people to celebrate the new year. And the Aussies have also welcomed the new year in what's become an annual tradition there. Fireworks again set off atop the Sydney Harbour Bridge to help ring in the new year. Residents of American Samoa and Midway Islands will be the last to ring in 2013. And 2013 marked a first in North Korea. The country celebrated the start of the new year with a major fireworks display, said to be the first ever such event to mark the start of a new year. Unlike many other countries, the pictures came with a commentary and not music. And here in Lethbridge, volunteers are getting ready to host Family Fest at Exhibition Park. The doors open in less than an hour, but staff and volunteers have been working throughout the day to get ready for a crowd expected to be between 6,000 or 7,000 people tonight. Kids will have 10 large Astro jump stations to choose from, along with a petting zoo, jumbo checkers, face painting, clowns, and food. There is no admission charge. A number of businesses help sponsor the event, which is now into its 17th year.
It's grandpa, grandma, mom and dad, and the kids can come out. We open at 6, we close at 10. They're home by 10 or 9:30, if you will. They still have time to do activities for New Year's Eve, whether it's watching the crystal ball come down in New York City or whatever the case may be.
Doors open at 6 o'clock. Organizers say they're expecting the crowd to be bigger than usual this year because of the mild weather. Meanwhile, officials in New York City put the big New Year's Eve ball through one final test yesterday. Ahead of tonight's big countdown in Times Square, everything appears to be working as planned. The 6,000-kilo ball will rise 44 meters tonight before crowds in Times Square count out the final seconds of 2012. Nearly 2,700 Waterford crystals cover the surface of the ball, which is lit by more than 32,000 LED lights. Officials say that this year's ball is 88% more efficient than in previous years. And of course, this is also the time of year then when many of us make promises that we hope to keep in the coming year. And we asked, what is your New Year's resolution? Here's what some of you had to say.
New Year's resolution, if I had one to say, is just to, to be a better person.
Just get in shape, I guess. Go to the gym, meet a guy who isn't a jerk.
Cool. Actually, I haven't really thought about it yet.
Drink more beer.
I think I'm going to try to quit smoking.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
And a quick note, if you are going out tonight, taxi companies tell us they expect wait times for a ride could range up to an hour. Okay, Dory Rossiter, what can we expect to ring in 2013 with for the temperatures?
We've got some pretty nice temperatures, Jackie, coming up. Wait till you see the 5-day forecast. Temperatures within the next week are looking very stable. Area of high pressure moving in from BC, so we'll have lots of sunshine for the next several days. So I'll tell you all about it in a couple of minutes. But yeah, it's looking good.
We like how that sounds. Thank you, Dory. Meanwhile, a group of First Nations demonstrators gathered in Lethbridge today to show support for Chief Teresa Spence, who is now into the 21st day of her fast. Members of the Blood and Piikani Nations were getting a lot of support from passing drivers as they held a peaceful demonstration at Henderson Lake. It was part of the Idle No More campaign, demanding action from the Harper government on treaty issues. Organizers say this protest was to show that they're behind Chief Spence, who is seeking a face-to-face meeting with Prime Minister Stephen Harper and Governor General David Johnston.
It's very frustrating frustrating. It's frustrating that we're not being heard, and I think that the government needs to hear what we are saying, and First Nations people need to be consulted, because it's not only affecting everything, it's affecting our treaties.
Meanwhile, the woman at the center of the idle movement is said to be quite weak. Teresa Spence stopped eating solid food back on December the 11th. The chief of the First Nation, Northern Ontario, has been fasting and living in a teepee near Parliament Hill to demand that Prime Minister Harper meet with Aboriginal leaders. Spence wants to talk about what she calls Ottawa's lack of respect for Aboriginal issues. And police have charged a 26-year-old Lethbridge man with allegedly setting his own home on fire. The fire broke out at a home along the 1200 block of 8th Avenue South around 11 o'clock Thursday night. Caused just over $150,000 in damage. One person inside the home was helped out by a neighbor. A dog also managed to escape the burning building. Heinrich Friesen is charged with arson as well as mischief. He made his first court appearance this morning and has been remanded in custody until Thursday. Fire investigators continue to comb through the scene of that major fire in Kimberley that gutted a building in the town's historic pedestrian mall. The fire broke out just before 6 Friday night in the basement of the Kootenay Cycle Works building. Police evacuated the entire downtown square known as the Platzel while firefighters worked. The business next door, lucky to escape with only minor smoke and water damage. Fortunately, no one was injured. And an 18-year-old Medicine Hat man is behind bars after some disturbing remarks were posted on Facebook. Medicine Hat police began investigating disturbing and threatening comments on Facebook on Boxing Day. Police say there were remarks about the Sandy Hook school massacre in Connecticut and a threat towards a Medicine Hat school. The 18-year-old is charged with threats and publishing obscene material. He was taken into police custody and made his first court appearance today. Police are not releasing his name, and they say that local school administrators have been contacted. Well, Fort Macleod RCMP are investigating a poaching incident within town limits. The Southern Alberta police officers say 5 dead Canada geese were found near a construction site. They had been shot and the carcasses left in a pile. Police say hunting season for Canada geese ended back on December 21st, and they think these birds were shot and left after that date. If you have any information, you're urged to contact Crime Stoppers. There's more legal trouble for embattled meat packing plant XL Foods. A coalition of American ranchers and consumer groups is lobbying the U.S. government to block a potential $100 million deal. The meat packer's new Brazilian owners want to buy XL's processing operations in Idaho and Nebraska. The company, called JBS, bought the Brooks processing plant in October after an E. coli outbreak shut operations for weeks. Part of that deal includes an option for JBS to also purchase XL's American operations. U.S. ranchers oppose the deal because they say it would make a foreign company the largest meat packer in the United States. They came pretty close, but there will not be a vote tonight on a deal to avoid the fiscal cliff in the United States. The White House and congressional Republicans have agreed to block across-the-board tax increases set to kick in at midnight tonight. The two sides continue to haggle over spending cuts. Passage of the legislation within the next 72 hours would eliminate or minimize any inconvenience for taxpayers. The White House and Congress have spent 7 weeks since the November 6th election struggling for a compromise to protect the economy. And a political scientist from the University of Lethbridge says what happens in the U.S. will have an impact on financial markets and economies around the world. But Dr. Jeffrey Hale says he expects it'll only be a short-term blip. Dr. Hale says that higher taxes or spending cuts will have an impact on American business, and that would impact some industries and businesses north of the border. He says the Alberta government, may also feel the impact on oil and gas revenues, which could see the deficit increase in the coming year.
If there is a significant slowdown in the American economy over the next few months, as a result of the tax increases and spending reductions that are built into the fiscal cliff, it means that we will probably see a reduction in sales to the United States in most of our major export sales, whether it's cattle and beef, whether it's oil or gas.
Dr. Hale says what happens in the U.S. could also affect stock markets around the world, although he expects that, as we mentioned, would be short-term. Save Your Empties. The 37th Troop of the Lethbridge Scouts is holding a bottle drive on January the 5th. They'll be focusing on West Lethbridge starting at 10 a.m. The proceeds will help fund their trip to the Canadian Jamboree in Sylvan Lake this summer. It's been more than 3 months since a large grass fire burned pasture, fence lines and property west of Lethbridge, but some landowners are still wondering if they're going to be compensated for their losses. Terry Vogt explains.
It almost looked like a bomb had gone off here.
Glenn Van Buren's farm was directly in the path of a huge grass fire that threatened Colehurst and parts of West Lethbridge, burning close to 5,000 hectares of grassland and farm fields.
Probably the worst day of our lives coming back here and knowing that everything that we had worked so hard for was going to be gone and we'd be having to rebuild everything.
And the rebuilding is taking even longer than the Van Burens could have imagined. While their buildings and machinery were insured, the value is far less than what it will cost to replace everything. Van Buren says because of depreciation, they can expect to recover only a third of their expenses.
So yeah, it's been very devastating, and it's just about January now, and we're trying to deal with this, trying to get other equipment so we're ready to go in the spring.
Like many property owners, the Van Burens are hoping disaster assistance will cover some of the difference. But more than 3 months after the fire, the county still hasn't filed a claim with the province. Even county officials say this process seems to be taking a long time. But they say they can't file their final claim for disaster assistance with the province until they have all of the information and reports.
Unfortunate part of it all is we haven't yet received the final report on how the fire actually started, nor have we received the final billing from SRD. So until we do both of those, we can't submit for a disaster claim. And that's kind of held up the process.
At the time of the fire, officials said the likely cause was a power line down by high winds, but the county is still waiting for confirmation.
And if it's deemed that somebody is responsible, I really do feel that the provincial government should be stepping in and helping people that are in this circumstance immediately so that they continue on with their lives.
The county says it can understand the frustration landowners are going through. But they say until they get all of the information, the process has been stalled. Terry Vogt, CTV News, Lethbridge.
And on to the markets, which ended mostly on an up note amid positive talks in Washington for a fix to the fiscal cliff.